A journey to education is never easy, especially for minority girls. We spoke with 4 girls and young women from different minority communities in Cambodia. They face unique challenges to go to school, but each one of them inspired us with their story. Theo is an ambitious young girl from an indigenous community in the highlands of Cambodia's northeast province of Mondulkiri. She comes from the group known as the Bunong, who have their own language, culture, and traditions. Theo is the only daughter and has 2 other brothers. She lives with her parents while her brothers work away from home. As the youngest daughter, she is in charge of taking care of the household. As a young girl, Theo always helped her mother at the farm and had to feed the animals after school until she started high school. When she was in grade 5, her father pressured her to drop out from school, but she refused. She was so desperate to continue studying and somehow managed to keep herself in school. Living in a marginalized community, life at high school wasn't always ideal for her and most of other indigenous girls. Theo had to travel 20 kilometers to get to school every day. She began feeling unsafe at night traveling back and decided to move to the town her school was in and only return home on the weekends. Theo did everything she could to convince her parents to let her stay in school. When she finally got their approval, she was over the moon.
ម៉ែខ្ញុំគាត់អត់ឲ្យខ្ញុំទៅរៀននៅក្រុងដោយសារតែគាត់បារម្ភព្រោះខ្ញុំជាកូនស្រីហើយមួយទៀតទំនៀមទម្លាប់របស់ជនជាតិព្នងគាត់ត្រូវឲ្យកូនស្រីទៅនៅផ្ទះហើយនៅពេលដែលខ្ញុំទៅរៀននៅក្រុងដំបូងគឺខ្ញុំត្រូវនៅផ្ទះអ៊ំរបស់មិត្តភ័ក្តិខ្ញុំហើយនៅទីនោះគឺមានផលវិបាកដោយសារតែអត់សូវបានរៀនហើយយើងត្រូវជួយការងារផ្ទះគាត់
Even with such a good news, the reality was that life at the new school still wasn't easy for her. She didn't have money to spend on extracurricular activities like the other students. Teachers told her not to speak her native Bunong language, which caused her to feel insecure about her identity and culture. She worried all the time of being judged or discriminated against. Eventually, she found herself becoming the quiet one in the classroom. Being the only daughter, she also continued to feel constant responsibility to take care of the household and her family members in her hometown. Although she was at school in another town, she constantly worried about her mother living alone at home. When she visited her hometown on the weekends, she often faced criticism from the neighbors.
ហើយកັບឯណែកែដឹងឯណែពូឡាណាកូនតមួយអានហានរៀនខំអានហានរៀនง่ายដឹងឯណែហានរៀនតែឆាត់បរីតហមឯឆាត់ចាន់មីរបនទៅចាញ់ដឹងទេពូឡាទេកັບរីមកអុចអកលាការេកូនអានរៀនអានផ្លាវដឹងចាន់ការមីរអានកែដឹងទេកັບអុច
In spite of challenges, Theo still considered herself lucky since she hadn't been forced to get married at a young age like other girls in the village. She admits that she wasn't so different from most girls in her community that didn't seem to be interested in getting involved in other activities when she was younger. But she recognized herself as a different person today.
ខ្ញុំសប្បាយចិត្តដែលខ្ញុំបានមកដល់ថ្ងៃហ្នឹងហើយខ្ញុំសប្បាយចិត្តដែលខ្ញុំអត់ជឿសម្ដីរបស់ពុករបស់ខ្ញុំដែលគាត់ឲ្យខ្ញុំឈប់រៀនកាលពីថ្នាក់ទី5ហើយបើសិនជាខ្ញុំជឿតាមពាក្យសម្ដីរបស់ពុករបស់ខ្ញុំកាលនោះឥឡូវប្រហែលជាខ្ញុំមានប្តីមានកូនហើយត្រូវមើលថែកូនត្រូវធ្វើចំការ នៅផ្ទះហើយខ្ញុំសង្ឃឹមថាការលើកទឹកចិត្តរបស់ខ្ញុំទៅដល់បងប្អូនចំនួនក្រោយសង្ឃឹមថាពួកគាត់នឹងខិតខំប្រឹងប្រែងរៀនសូត្រដូចខ្ញុំដែរ
Bun is a 22 years old mixed race woman with a Khmer father and an ethnic Vietnamese mother living in Kanda province along the border of Cambodia and Vietnam. In Cambodia, there have been traditionally negative feelings toward Vietnamese people, coming from long-standing historical issues as well as current-day tensions. A member of a big family with 6 other siblings, she is currently a Vietnamese and Khmer teacher at her home. Bun's real dream has always been to become a nurse. When she was in grade 9, her mother forced her to drop out of school, but luckily she managed to keep studying at the church nearby. By the time she got to grade 11, she had to work so that she could afford to keep herself in school.
ម៉ាក់ខ្ញុំធ្លាប់ប្រាប់ខ្ញុំថាបើសិនជាខ្ញុំចង់រៀនទៀតឲ្យខ្ញុំទៅរកលុយហើយដើម្បីរៀនខ្លួនឯងវិញទៀតចឹងណា
She was constantly told to quit school and work like other girls in the community. She had to be at school at 7 a.m. in the morning, help her mother with housework, then go to work from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning. She remembers being so exhausted getting to school after working all night, and sometimes she fell asleep in class. She didn't really do well in class either because she couldn't rest outside of work and school. She could only work there for 3 months since she's got no support from her family and really didn't have anyone to share those tough times with. There were times she wished for nothing more than a meal with her all family members together. She did everything she could to be able to go to school even without money or transportation. Fighting those battles to go to school wasn't the only thing.
ពេលដែលខ្ញុំរៀននៅសាលាភាគច្រើនគេរើសអើងខ្ញុំព្រោះអីខ្ញុំជាកូនកាត់ពេលខ្លះគាត់មិនមែនគិតថាខ្ញុំជាកូនកាត់ទេគាត់ថាខ្ញុំជាវៀតណាមជាយួនគាត់និយាយថាកូនយួនមករៀននៅសាលាហ្នឹងធ្វើអីចឹងណាជួនកាលវាប៉ះទង្គិចដល់ខ្ញុំខ្លះអារម្មណ៍ពេលដែលត្រូវបានគេរើសអើងហើយខ្ញុំអត់សប្បាយចិត្តទេនៅពេលដែលលើគេនិយាយចឹងខ្ញុំអត់យល់ថាហេតុអីពេលដែលខ្ញុំជាកូនកាត់ដែរខ្ញុំទៅរៀនហេតុអីគេអត់ផ្ដល់ឱកាសឲ្យខ្ញុំដូចក្មេងដទៃទៀតចឹងណាគេធ្វើមកលើខ្ញុំខុសនឹងក្មេងដទៃទៀត
Then she decided to go to the capital city to find a job away from home. She was hoping she could focus on herself and go for her dream, but somehow she ended up financially supporting her brother in order to help him achieve his own dream instead. During her high school years, she started participating in social activities with a non-governmental organization. Her mother didn't want her to go because she's a girl and didn't have to join those kinds of activities. But Bun is glad she did. She met young people from different communities and she did the facilitative listening design research in her own community, and she got to know even more about the girls here. She found out that many ethnic Vietnamese girls here weren't able to go to school, so she decided to open up an informal class for them to at least be able to read and write. Her family didn't really support this idea because it was crowded at home and they didn't see or try to understand what she was doing. She just moved out so she could have her own space to teach the girls and to feel more independent herself. During the COVID-19 pandemic, these children couldn't cross the border to go to school, so they were eager to study. Her dream for them is to be able to communicate in Khmer and be more ambitious to pursue higher education.
Trong ចំណាំបងប្អូនខ្ញុំមានតែខ្ញុំទេដែលរៀនចប់ទី12ពួកគាត់ពិបាកក្នុងការរកការងារធ្វើហើយសម្រាប់ខ្ញុំវិញពេលដែលខ្ញុំទៅរៀននៅសាលាក៏អញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំជួបនៅបញ្ហាការរើសអើងពីអត្តសញ្ញាណរបស់ខ្ញុំជាកូនកាត់មិនថានៅសាលាទេពេលដែលខ្ញុំនៅចិត្តផ្ទះខ្ញុំនៅក្នុងសហគមន៍ខ្ញុំក៏ខ្ញុំជួបនៅបញ្ហាហ្នឹងដែរយល់ដឹងពីបញ្ហាហ្នឹងតើបខ្ញុំជំរុញឲ្យខ្លួនឯងបើកថ្នាក់បើកសាលារៀនដើម្បីរៀនក្មេងៗដែលគាត់អត់បានសិក្សាខ្ញុំចង់ឲ្យគាត់ចេះអក្សរឲ្យគាត់អានបាននិងយល់ដឹងពីផលប្រយោជន៍ដែលរៀនបានអក្សរខ្មែរហ្នឹង
Kalyan is a 17-year-old young bright girl who lives with her mother and grandmother in a small village in Kampong province. She comes from the Cham Muslim community, one of Cambodia's minority populations that practice Islam and have roots to an ethnic group that migrated across the Mekong regions over centuries. Her parents separated when she was 11 years old. Being the only child in a single-parent family, it was quite challenging for Kalyan. As a girl, she loved going to school, but living in poverty prevented her from being able to afford materials and transportation. Her mother reaches a simple clothes vendor at a nearby market and was barely able to make ends meet. Kalyan normally travels 3 kilometers from her home to get to school. Sometimes she's asked to take along with her friend, and other times she's borrowed her uncle's motorcycle. Over time, Kalyan started to feel discouraged about her education, but fortunately, she never let that stop her dream. Her father had always wanted her to go to school and study hard, but unfortunately her mother wasn't able to support, so there was no choice but to help her sell the food at home. As a young girl in a Cham minority community, her mother didn't want her to go anywhere far from home because of her safety and her reputation. Once in a while, she was allowed to visit her father living near the capital. She always wished her parents could get back together and become a happy family like before, and she could focus more on her education rather than her family problems. Her mother and grandmother never forced her to work on a factory like other families in the village. That didn't stop her from worrying that one day her mother might make her drop out of school or arrange a marriage because that was the normal thing to do for Cham girls in her community. Boys were always allowed to go to school and hang out, but for girls, everything was forbidden. Her religious culture had a very strict dress code for women and girls, and some of them weren't allowed to study at all. Kalyan was always grateful that she had the opportunity to go to school and wasn't forced to get married or work.
ក្តីសម័យរបស់ខ្ញុំចង់ខ្លាចជានារីអាកាសចរមួយរូបពីព្រោះខ្ញុំចង់ដើរលេងជុំវិញពិភពលោកទទួលបានបទពិសោធន៍ថ្មីៗក្នុងការដើរហាត់ដែលមានសេរីភាពគ្រប់ទីកន្លែងអ្វីដែលខ្ញុំមើលឃើញនៅក្នុងសហគមន៍ចាមរបស់ខ្ញុំភាគច្រើនក្មេងស្រីទទួលរងនូវសម្ពាធគំនាបជាច្រើនពីគ្រួសាររបស់ពួកគាត់ដែលចង់ឲ្យក្មេងស្រីឈប់រៀនខ្ញុំជំរុញទឹកចិត្តឲ្យក្មេងស្រីមានការតស៊ូការជំនះរាល់ឧបសគ្គក្នុងការបន្តការសិក្សានិងចាប់យកក្តីសម័យរបស់ពួកគាត់
In Cambodia, Khmer Krom usually refers to ethnic Khmer people who were born in today's southern Vietnam and are a minority group there. Some Khmer Krom people migrated to Cambodia so they would be in the country where they are no longer a minority. Nari is a girl whose parents identify themselves as a Khmer Krom in Siem Reap, the town that hosts the world-famous Angkor Wat temple, visited by millions of tourists every year. Her father is a carpenter, and her mother sells groceries. Being born and raised in a Khmer Krom community, outsiders sometimes think that they are actually Vietnamese people. For Nari, it has been uncomfortable to share her identity with others. Nari's parents never discouraged her from studying, even though they had to work very hard to enable her to stay in school. Having just graduated from high school, Nari now really wants to go to university in the capital to get a bachelor degree in public administration, because she sees an academic path helping her in the future. Her father, however, have a very strong opinion against the idea, mainly because of the thought of her being away from home as a girl. He insists that if she wants to study, it must be in her hometown. This is new for Nari. Ever since she was in high school, her father was always checking up on her to make sure that she got home before dark. He thought it's not safe for her to go out after school and insisted she got home before curfew. Khmer Krom people aren't living as a single group, but often live and spread out among other Khmer people across Siem Reap. Nari grew up without meeting a lot of other girls of Khmer Krom descent who might share a similar same identity to her. Her parents both identify themselves as Khmer Krom who moved to Cambodia in 1999. They move around different areas of the country before settling in Siem Reap, where Nari was born and has rarely left except for some occasional trips with her school. Her parents are concerned about her future and think that having a cultural minority identity might negatively affect her. They are afraid that she might get bullied with her identity. It might be even harder for her to get a job. Even though she wasn't exposed to the Khmer Krom community as much as others, she was sometimes mistaken as a foreigner in Cambodia due to misconceptions about Khmer Kroms and Vietnamese. Nari has tried very hard in school so that she could get her parents' support to pursue higher education. They allowed her to study in Siem Reap.
បាទទោះបីជាខ្ញុំជួបផលលំបាកខ្លះៗចឹងណាក៏ប៉ុន្តែនៅមានគ្រួសាររបស់ខ្ញុំគាត់នៅចាំគាំទ្រឲ្យខ្ញុំទៅបន្តការសិក្សានៅសាកលវិទ្យាល័យហើយគាត់បានបំពេញក្តីសម័យឲ្យខ្ញុំហ៊ានមុខជំនាញដែលខ្ញុំចង់ហ៊ានហើយណាមួយទៀតបើទោះបីជាខ្ញុំអត់បានទៅហ៊ាននៅទីក្រុងភ្នំពេញក៏ប៉ុន្តែខ្ញុំអាចបន្តការសម័យរបស់ខ្ញុំហ៊ាននៅសៀមរាបហើយបើយើងក៏លេចទៅមើលក្មេងស្រីនៅក្នុងសហគមន៍ខ្មែរក្រមរបស់យើងគឺនៅមានអ្នកខ្លះគាត់អត់ទាន់បានមានឱកាសក្នុងការរៀនសូត្រហើយគ្រួសាររបស់គាត់អត់ទាន់មានការគាំទ្រដិតដល់ទេហើយសម្រាប់មួយទៀតពួកគាត់នៅរបៀបថាគាត់ត្រូវធ្វើការងារជួយនៅក្នុងគ្រួសាររបស់គាត់ផ្សេងទៀតចឹងទៅអញ្ចឹងគាត់អត់ទាន់មានឱកាសអាចទៅរៀនបាន
Theo became an active member of Indigenous youth group in her community. She is determined and is carefully charting her path to go to university in a capital city with the dream to one day teach children in her own community. Even though Ben could not go to the university as she hoped, her contribution to girls in her own community that were unable to study has deeply inspired others to also find ways to foster positive change. Kalyan continued to stay in high school and is fighting all odds to become the first person in her family to go to university. Nari got accepted to university and is now happily pursuing her bachelor degree in public administration and has become a role model in her community for other girls who dream to study. Without considering minority girls, huge gaps are exposed in society on a path towards development. Minority girls must be supported to go to school through all the barriers they face.